So I'm going to be working on the binding for this quilt, and I want to use a lot of the scraps from the quilt itself and piece them together to make the binding. I think that's going to be a nice look. So all I have to do is hold out some of my scraps and I press them that I know will be at least 2.5 inches, and I am not going to worry about their length that much. I have a 2.5 inch ruler, so this makes this really easy to do. And when I get a nice big stack, I will then piece them together. I'm not going to worry about them being on a bias for this one, and I'm not going to worry about having a bias angled, mitered seams. I'm going to go straight with this because it's going to work really well for me, and I don't need to have the forgiveness of the bias for this quilt. Binding is pretty much straightforward, so straight a grain is fine with me. And now that I have a bunch of these strips cut, and I'll be cutting some more, but I've decided I want all of them to be 10 inches. I think that's going to look really nice around the outer border of the quilt because we're only going to see this much of it, but I think that'll be nice. So I'm going to cut all of these to 10 inches. I'll do a few at a time. I probably will start stacking them, so I'm doing 4 or 5 at a time. This is my quilt that looks like beads on a string. To bind this one, I am going to be using those scraps. Where did they go? I dropped them. Hang on a second. Those scraps. Finding the end, finding the end, finding the end. Okay, so there's my 2.5 inches that I have now folded over and ironed. I am going to be leaving a tail of about at least 10 inches there. This is the corner of the quilt. I'm going to start down a ways. I always start a bit down. I'm going to start right about here, and then I am going to sew 1/4 inch folded together this right onto edge of the quilt as soon as I turn my machine on. Here we go. Okay. So I'm coming up to the corner, so let me get a little closer and I'll show you the corner. Now I am going to continue sewing this binding up till 1/4 inch, and then I'm going to take it out of my machine. I can feel it right about there. One more. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this around so I get my corner going here. Now, corners are not difficult once you figure out what it is you need this fabric to do. So I'm going to be turning it up on itself. Let's see if I can get you a better. Turning it up on itself. Here we go. So that I have a nice 45-degree angle right here that comes right out to the corner of the fabric. And I'm just going to press that a little bit in place. Holding that down, I am going to now bring this straight down on top of it. Now I can feel that 45-degree angle. I am going to put my needle in just right where that is at 1/4 with 1/4 inch, and so with my foot down, there we go. So here's that corner we just sewed, and you can see it'll look like this where we folded it over. Now when I am going to be sewing the binding to the back, as I come around this corner, we're just going to flip it inside out. And I'm going to I'll show you. Flip it inside out. I will be sewing by hand right here. Then I'm going to fold this, so again we have another 45-degree angle, and you can sit and match it up to make sure that your fold, and you can play with it a little bit, make sure your fold is exactly the 45 degrees. Get these threads out of the way as you're sewing. And this is where it's nice to have the binder clips, so you can see here's what the back is going to look like. It has that nice 45 degree, and here is the front. It has that nice 45 degree.
And be sure to subscribe to our channel. You can do so here by clicking the subscribe button. That way you'll find out about new videos as they become available.